Syracuse drops the fourth straight as they lose in Raleigh to NC State, 88-68. You're listening to Echoes from the Dome, Episode 4. You heard correctly, Syracuse loses their fourth straight as they lose in blowout fashion, 88-68, against the NC State Wolfpack. Syracuse falls to 12-9 overall and 3-5 in ACC play. This episode, we will recap that game, give our thoughts on Syracuse's performance, and we will begin to preview Syracuse's next matchup at home Saturday against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. So, Syracuse loses once again. It's our third episode here on Echoes from the Dome, and unfortunately, I cannot bring any more positive news to the table. We have not had a win since starting this podcast up. This is actually the fourth loss, so every loss during this losing streak, we have had the podcast running. We didn't have a podcast for the Miami post game. I had intended on it, but some stuff came up, got tangled up, and before I knew it, it was Monday, so I didn't want to do back-to-back episodes because, a Monday episode and the Syracuse playing on Tuesday would have been two back-to-back rapid-fire episodes, so I wanted to just recap this NC State game. I guess while we're here, we can go ahead and talk about the Miami game a little bit on Saturday. Syracuse fell behind pretty early, had it kind of close at points, got it down to about 2, I believe, but were never able to get over the hump and complete the comeback on Miami, and Miami kind of cruised their way to the finish line in that game. And Syracuse, that was their third straight loss, but now we see a fourth straight loss here tonight in Raleigh as Syracuse loses 88-68 to the Wolfpack. Another one of those games where it feels like Syracuse just falls flat on their face in the second half, as it was actually a pretty decent first half for the Orange, but NC State ends up pulling away late in that second half and cruising to a 20-point victory. So I'm going to recap both halves because I thought Syracuse was actually pretty decent in that first half. So we'll recap the first half. I'll bring some box score numbers, talk about some guys I thought played well, some guys I thought didn't play well, and we'll recap what we saw tonight as the Orange dropped their fourth straight. First half-wise, my initial thoughts on the first half is I actually thought Syracuse played well. I thought that they were in a game that they really shouldn't have been in. NC State was getting some good looks on the offensive end. Felt like they were having their way against us on that end. Quadir Copeland, we'll get into that, the reunion and homecoming, whatever you want to call it, for Quadir Copeland. But they were getting their way. They were passing the ball well. They were hitting open looks. And Syracuse, again, it was just a very flat start. I'm pretty sure Syracuse, again, got down 8 to 9 points in the opening minutes, very similar to what they did at home against Miami. But Syracuse slowly crawled their way back. They found some offense through no other than Donnie Freeman. I keep talking about Donnie Freeman. I'll go through his numbers here in a little bit. This guy, in my opinion, is a first-round pick, maybe even a lottery pick. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased, but I do truly believe that he is a first-round pick in this year's draft, regardless of how much talent is in it. I do know it's very stacked, but Donnie Freeman is what is keeping the Syracuse team somewhat afloat, because I truly couldn't imagine what this season would be like without Donnie Freeman. But anyways, Syracuse finds ways through Donnie Freeman to stay in the game. Nate King's turned it on there late in that first half, hit a couple really tough contested threes. There was one out on an out-of-bounds baseline play that he turned around in the deep corner and sunk a three. It was a really nice shot. That was his second three of the half. And it felt like Syracuse was being kind of let in or kept in it by NC State. NC State had a chance to really open that first half up, especially very early on. They weren't able to do so, a couple turnovers, and Syracuse somehow was only down 41-37 at halftime. Now, again, if you want me to give a recap on the first half, I thought Syracuse, again, was okay. Thought the defense could have been better. The offense turned it on late. A few and ones, a couple three-pointers went in. They were getting to the free throw line. Kyan Anthony especially was getting to the free throw line as he often does. But the turnovers is what kills this Syracuse team. They only finished with 11 entirely in this game, and 11 doesn't sound great, but for the Syracuse team, 11 turnovers is not that bad. So 41-37 at halftime. You're feeling okay. I'm still not expecting Syracuse to win this game, but 41-37, I'm like, maybe we'll see a competitive final 20 minutes. Second half starts, Syracuse is continuing to be competitive. I thought J.J. Starling really started to get going. He was being aggressive. Again, did not shoot well from three, was only 2 of 6 from three. He missed 3 3-pointers very early on in that second half. But he was doing what we know J.J. Starling can do best, and that's when he gets the ball in his hands, he's able to go downhill, draw contact, and finish at the rim. Had a couple of and ones, had some nice finishes at the rim. Didn't shoot entirely well from the field, but that's how J.J. Starling started that second half. Also early on in that second half, Donnie Freeman went to the bench very early on. In real time, I was confused because Donnie had 0 fouls in the game, and surely I thought that in a very critical stretch of that second half that Donnie Freeman would not be going to the bench. Ended up he had cramps, so I thought J.J. Starling did a really good job when Donnie Freeman was on the bench dealing with some cramp issues. So when you hear me talk about how the offense played or how J.J. played, you're probably thinking, well, this was a pretty close game. This was a pretty solid effort offensively for Syracuse, right? Well, the offense wasn't the problem. The rebounding on the defensive end was a major problem for the Orange. I'm going to read these rebounding numbers, and it is going to hurt to hear. NC State rebounds, 45. Syracuse rebounds, 33. A 12-rebound margin in favor of the Wolfpack. It's inexcusable, and a lot of those truly did come from offensive rebounds. Second and third chance opportunities. Now, Syracuse, I've noticed, you want to give Kyan Anthony minutes, and fair enough. He's a talented guy that can be a spark plug off the bench. But I have noticed, especially these past 2 games, that when Kyan Anthony comes off the bench, that they want to disguise his defense in a 2-3 zone. Now, a 2-3 zone is fine when you're not running it for a full 40 minutes. I think a 2-3 zone is absolutely fine to mix up in a game. The problem is rebounding in a 2-3 zone is 10 times harder than it is rebounding in a man-to-man defense. Okay, you're spread out defensively, you're guarding your zone, so to speak. Sometimes you're not in position to grab a rebound down low. You're not really assigned to a man to box out, so sometimes you could be far away from the basket trying to get a rebound. And that, to me, is what Syracuse's biggest problem was. Now, it wasn't just when Syracuse was in the 2-3 zone, so I don't want to single out Kyan and say, well, if we weren't in a 2-3 zone with him, then we would have gotten these rebounds. It was a little bit of both, but I really noticed it when Syracuse was in a 2-3 zone. And fair enough, it's harder to rebound the basketball in a 2-3 zone, as for the reasons I just listed. But I saw not really just out of position, it's one thing to be out of position and not be able to grab a defensive rebound. It's different when I don't see much effort to go after rebounds. I thought that William Kyle, especially in 27 minutes of play, gets 8 rebounds. Not terrible. Would love to see more of it, though. Would love to see him grabbing a bit more rebounds that he lost. Donnie Freeman ended up with a double-double. Again, yeah, he had 10 rebounds. He had about 4 in the first 5 minutes of the first half. So again, you truly wonder how many of those that he got in the first half relative to the second half. So again, I thought maybe his rebound count could have been higher. But that's what I saw on the defensive end, and that is why this game got away from Syracuse. Syracuse was not playing terrible defense. They really weren't. They really were not playing terrible defense. But when you give a team 2, maybe even 3 chances at scoring the basketball, a team as good as NC State is probably going to take advantage of that. And they did. Another thing I noticed is Syracuse could not keep NC State out of the paint. Copeland especially. Copeland had his way getting to the line. Had his way getting into the lane. He was 9 of 9 from the free throw line. Van Leuben had a terrific game. Had a perfect game, actually. 8 for 8 on 18 points. Had a great game. Darian Williams, we know that this has been a guy that Will Wade has often defended. People have questioned his shooting, how much he's scoring the basketball. 5 of 9 from 3 was Darian Williams tonight. NC State was able to get opportunities off offensive rebounds, and they were able to get their way in the paint. And sometimes we can sit here and we can question the coaching all we want. I've questioned the coaching all year. But at the end of the day, I need to see effort back from our players. I need to see them fighting a little harder for a rebound. I need to see them defending a player a little harder when they're trying to make a move to the rim. NC State had their way in that second half, especially in that paint. And NC State had 50 paint points in comparison to Syracuse's 38. So, bottom line is we were outworked in the paint tonight. Now, looking at the offensive rebounds, it was actually 15-15. We know that NC State is not, they're not a great rebounding team. This is also something that they've struggled with. So it's 15-15, but when we talk about the second half, NC State 9 offensive rebounds to Syracuse's 6. So when I talk about that second half and I say that I saw a lack of effort with offensive rebounds and defensive rebounding on our part, NC State won that by 3 in the second half. It's not a lot. It's not a lot. I know 3 offensive rebound difference does not sound like a lot, but it can change a game significantly if a team is able to score second chance opportunities off those offensive rebounds. Now here is the staggering stat. Total rebounds, NC State 29, Syracuse 15 in the second half. Now again, they win the offensive rebound battle. A lot of those rebounds for NC State come off a lot of missed shots that Syracuse had. But again, Syracuse was dominated not only in the paint, but were dominated on the boards in that second half. And I want to make sure that it's known that it was in the second half because Syracuse was up 18-16 in total rebounds at halftime. So Syracuse was winning the rebound battle at halftime. And again, it's only a 4-point game at halftime. NC State is only leading by 4. So it brings you back to saying, did the rebounding in that second half ultimately allow NC State to pull away? Because Syracuse was winning the rebounding battle in the first half. Even if it was only by 2, they were winning it. And it was a much closer ball game. But you see a massive dip in total rebounds in that second half, and NC State ends up pulling away and turns what was a 4-point halftime lead into a 20-point victory. Now, I hate to do it, but I have to do it. Because I have to continue to be negative because I don't know what positives I can continue to draw from these losses. I'm running out of positives. Nathan George, 4 points, 2 of 12 shooting, 0 of 4 from 3, only 3 assists, two turnovers in 26 minutes. I don't even want to say that I'm mad at Nathan George, even though I very well could be mad at Nathan George. I'm just more so disappointed that this is the type of play that we're getting out of our point guards. Nathan George is a guy that I believe is very talented, and I don't think that a couple games should completely define who a player is. But Nathan George, you have to be better. And I'm sure he knows he has to be better. And I'm sure he doesn't care about what some college student from down south is saying on a podcast about him. But it's disappointing. It's more so disappointing that it is just flat out causing me anger, really. Nate Kings, I just look at Nate Kings and wonder, shoots 2 of 5 from the field in 29 minutes. Why in the world is Nate Kings only getting 5 shots? Nate Kings should be touching the basketball every time down the floor. Nate Kings, we should be running our offense to get Nate Kings open looks. Nate Kings is a guy that I've talked about in previous podcasts. A lot of people like to compare him to a guy like Chris Bell, where he can shoot off the catch. But Nate Kings is a guy that doesn't need to shoot off the catch to be effective. We've seen this guy be able to create his own shots off the bounce. And I continue to wonder why Nate Kings is only getting 5 shots in 29 minutes. This is supposed to be Syracuse's best shooter, by the way. And I'm not saying that Nate Kings is not a good shooter. I'm saying that we should be giving Nate Kings way more shots than 5 shots. Nate Kings should be shooting minimum 10 to 12 shots a game. And I would rather him go 2 for 12 than I would him go 2 for 5. I would much rather Nate Kings go 3 for 15 than I would him go 3 for 6. Or 4 for 5. Because that means that we were not getting Nate Kings enough shots. And tonight we did not give Nate Kings enough shots. He should not be only shooting the basketball 5 times in 29 minutes. That's ridiculous. There should be continuous offense that is ran through Nate Kings. There should be plays that we have that is dedicated to freeing up a guy like Nate Kings for an open jumper. Or at least saying, Nate Kings, go make a play. Let's put the ball in your hands and go make a play with it. But clearly that's not going on. Because I can't believe that we have such a talented, not only shooter, a talented scorer who is only taking 5 shots a game. Why in the world is that happening? Anyways, Donnie Freeman, 24 points, 9 of 18 from the field, 10 rebounds, double-double for Donnie Freeman. Again, a really good performance. If it's not for Donnie Freeman in this game, this team loses by 40. Bottom line. Donnie did what Donnie does. He kept us in it for as long as he possibly could. Now the bench. Just not good enough. I talked about it last week when we lost at Virginia Tech. A guy like Sadiq White has, I think he had 11 against Virginia Tech, and then you just don't get enough production from your starting lineup. Game like this, Donnie Freeman has 24, J.J. Starling ends up having 17. And then you get a flat performance from the bench. Con Anthony, 6 points in 17 minutes. I didn't think he was terrible. Again, he only took 5 shots. But, I mean, he took 5 shots in 12 less minutes than Nate Kings did. Tyler Betsy hit a 3 late. Again, Tyler Betsy only taking 3 shots. Tyler Betsy is probably the best pure shooter on this team. Why are we only letting Tyler Betsy get up 3 shots? It's beyond me. You know what? If you want me to include a positive, actually, here's a positive. Calvin Russell III. If you don't know who Calvin Russell III is, that's not a problem because he joined the team about 2 or 3 weeks ago. If you follow Syracuse football, which I don't, but I do know who Calvin Russell III is, 5-star wide receiver from Florida who is going to try to play basketball as well, joined the team a few weeks ago. He had an and one in 2 minutes. So he had 3 points in 2 minutes. You want me to find a positive in a 20-point loss? Congrats to Calvin Russell III on scoring his first collegiate points. Other than that, I don't know what positives I can say, and I feel like a broken record because I keep saying the same things over and over again. But I'm going to keep hammering on the same things until I see just something change. Just give me a slight change, please. Please. I mean, I can sit here and go on Nate Kings and Tyler Betsy combining for 8 shots. You need shooting. You shoot 7 for 23. You need shooters. And sure, Donnie Freeman can give you a couple threes. He did tonight. J.J. Starling can give you a couple threes, but my goodness, why are we relying on guys who are not known for shooting? It's beyond me. It is beyond me. So let's, I guess, put a stamp on that. Y'all have heard what my thoughts are on it. You probably have the same exact thoughts. I'm not going to get into why Adrian Autry needs to be fired because, again, it's pointless at this point. He's not going to be fired during the middle of the season. I'm sorry, fans. You can keep going on social media and saying it. He's not going to be fired. John Wildhack is not going to make the decision to fire Adrian Autry during the middle of the season and embarrass him. There you go. If you want to keep saying it on social media, that's fine. I'm not stopping you because that's free will. But if you want to save your thumb some topping, and if you want to save some valuable time in your life, Adrian Autry will be fired at the end of the season. It's just not going to happen now. So you're just going to have to wait about a month and a half for it to happen. Anyways, let's preview what's next for Syracuse. Syracuse will return home to the JMA Wireless Dome Saturday for a 6 p.m. Eastern Time tip-off against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. And this game is literally just coming final now as I speak. Notre Dame barely, wow, I was not expecting this one, I'll tell you that, barely loses at home 197 to Virginia in double overtime. It's another multi-overtime game for Virginia. This time Virginia's on the winning end of it. We know that they had that thriller with Virginia Tech at the beginning of the conference play. But I was not expecting this one. Notre Dame loses 197, only losing by 3 in double overtime to a Virginia team that lost a pretty heartbreaking one to North Carolina over the weekend. So let's preview Notre Dame. Notre Dame is going to be now coming into this game 11-10 overall, 2-6 in ACC play. To be fair, I don't know a whole lot about Notre Dame. I have not sat down and watched Notre Dame play much this season. I do know that they are still without very, very good junior guard Marcus Burton. And if I had to imagine, if Marcus Burton was healthy and playing, then Notre Dame would be a bubble team. Because they're 11-10, yeah, it's not great, but Marcus Burton truly is that good. And I don't know the timeline for Marcus Burton. I'm sure that he won't be back in time for Saturday's game. But Syracuse's luck is he would be back in time for Saturday's game, and he would score 20+ and drain the dome. Drain it more than it's already been drained. Sorry. But other than that, other than no Marcus Burton, I don't know a lot about Notre Dame. And I'm done predicting wins and losses for this team because I went through the rant on the last episode and I kind of laid out the wins and losses. So from now on, I'm just going to go in with the expectation with, maybe we'll get a win. Maybe they'll surprise me. Maybe they'll get up and play good basketball today. Maybe they'll be coached at a high level today. But when you look at Syracuse's remaining schedule, Notre Dame at home, there's not a lot more games where you can be like, yeah, Syracuse is probably going to win that game. Notre Dame is one of those games that on the remaining schedule is like, yeah, Syracuse should win that game. I'm not going to sit here and predict a win, but Syracuse at home should win that game. Now, you wonder about fatigue being a factor for Notre Dame. They're going to get an okay, 3 days of rest. Obviously, they'll have to fly to Syracuse for this game. But coming off a double overtime game, that can be hard to come back from, especially when you don't win. That can be not only physically, but mentally hard to recover from. So Syracuse should win this game. Notre Dame still has Braden Shrewsbury, who is Micah Shrewsbury's son. Micah Shrewsbury is the head coach of Notre Dame. Braden has been a pretty good shooter, shot 5 of 9 against Virginia tonight, so still looks like he's still a pretty efficient shooter. Other than that, I don't have much more to say about Notre Dame because I really don't know a whole lot about them. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's a bad thing that I don't know much about them. But maybe it's a good thing in the sense that they just haven't been making much noise this season. But at home, you don't have a lot of, for sure wins left. I'm not saying this is a for sure win, but you don't have many left. Given a recap of Notre Dame's schedule, ACC play, they won at Stanford 47-40. My goodness, 47-40 is that's a scoreline for sure. That's a Tony Bennett top scoreline right there. Even though Tony Bennett had no affiliation in that game. They lose, and now I do remember this one. They lost on that very controversial call against California where Coach Shrewsbury went after the referee. That referee so happened to be the same one that blew the no call on what should have been a foul call on Kyle Anthony in the Hofstra game, but I digress. Lost at home to Clemson by 15. Yeah, probably expected. Clemson's a top 4 team in the conference. Lost at home to Miami by 12. That's about the same as what we did. Lost at Virginia Tech by 13. We didn't lose to Virginia Tech that much, but it really should have been. Got thumped at North Carolina, 91-69. And then did something that we haven't done, or we didn't do, beat Boston College 68-64 before losing tonight in double overtime to Virginia 197. So a couple very close losses, a couple blowout losses, and a couple very close victories. Ugly victories. So looking at some of these, I don't expect this. This probably won't be a very high-scoring game. It'll probably be ugly. It could definitely be like first to 70 wins it, be like a 70 to 64, 71 to 63 top score line. But other than that, I don't have much of an opinion on Notre Dame. So I just wanted to give a brief recap on what I think Notre Dame is, or what I've seen from Notre Dame this year. But when you look at Syracuse's schedule and you look at some of the upcoming games, at UNC and at Virginia next week, at Duke later on. Duke is, again, one of the best teams in the country this year. We know that. Have to play UNC at home again. Have to play at Louisville. You still welcome a decent Cal and a pretty good SMU team to the Dome. Notre Dame at home is one of those games where you're like, you know what? In a season that's not going our way, this feels like a game that Syracuse should be able to win. And if Syracuse is not able to win this game, then they're probably not going to win many more, if any, the rest of the way. And that truly sounds harsh. That sounds harsh. But that's what's at stake Saturday. No tournament implications. Obviously, Syracuse is now 12-9. Notre Dame's 11-10. This game does absolutely nothing. Both of these teams are in a position now where they seemingly will have to win the ACC tournament if they even make the ACC tournament. Have to remember, 18 teams in the conference now. You have to, the bottom three get left out, so you have to actually make the ACC tournament now. But no tournament implications. Does nothing for either with a win. So maybe it'll just be one of those fun college basketball games between two power conference teams who are playing for absolutely nothing. I'm going to go ahead and start to wrap up the show here. Thank you guys again. Got another over 30-minute episode. I'm proud. I guess that's what happens when I just get on here and start yapping and ranting about whatever. But again, appreciate you guys for listening to episode 3 of Echoes from the Dome. Hit the like button, subscribe button, let your friends know about the podcast, because we're going to build this up. Sometime in the near future, I'm also going to create a Instagram page. I want to have a social media page of some sort. Maybe, even if it's not Instagram, maybe Facebook. Something that promotes this channel and promotes future podcasts. So, in the meantime, though, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, let your friends and family know that we're doing this and we're trying to get better and we're trying to grow. And, again, I appreciate you guys. We will be back. Not going to say a confirmed date. Hopefully, we'll be back with a Notre Dame recap, and hopefully it'll be the first ever podcast episode where we are recapping a victory. But Syracuse does play Big Monday at UNC next Monday, so we will try to have a show out Sunday. If not, we will definitely be recapping the North Carolina game on Monday. Again, thank you guys for listening. Have a great night, and I will see you sometime in the near future. Go Orange.